You feel that familiar rhythmic thud against your shin before you even look down. It is a heavy, warm weight resting on your feet, accompanied by the faint, earthy scent of corn chips and old blankets. If you reach down, your fingers disappear into a thick coat of fur, and you might feel a damp, slightly sticky nose press against your palm. There is a specific temperature to a dog's body, a low simmering heat that radiates through your jeans, making you feel like you are anchored to the floor by a very friendly, very hairy biological space heater. It is one of the most comforting sensations in the modern world. We call it companionship, and we think of it as a beautiful, mutual agreement between two species that decided to walk through history hand in hand. We look at those big, soulful eyes and see a reflection of our own capacity for love. That sounds like a heartwarming story of friendship, but the reality is much more like a slow-motion biological heist. When you feel that warm weight on your feet, you aren't just feeling a pet. You are feeling the results of a 20,000-year project where ancient humans took one of the most successful, independent, and terrifying predators on the planet and systematically dismantled its soul. We didn't just invite wolves into our camps, we broke them. We took an animal that could solve its own problems, navigate entire continents, and maintain a complex social order without a single human hint, and we turned it into a creature that can't even figure out how to get a piece of ham out from under a cupboard without looking at us for permission. We ruined their bodies, we rewired their brains, and we fundamentally broke their ability to exist as autonomous beings. And the weirdest part? We did it by accident. Of course, you might think that ruining is a strong word for an animal that gets free meals and premium healthcare. But if you compare a modern dog to its ancestor, the gray wolf, the ruining becomes a lot more literal. A wolf is a masterpiece of evolution. It has a brain designed for high-stakes gambling with its own life every single day. It has to track prey over miles of frozen tundra, coordinate with a team using subtle ear twitches, and make split-second decisions about risk and reward. It is an apex predator with a PhD in survival. Now look at a pug. A pug is a biological disaster that we created because we thought a flat face looked funny. It can barely breathe, its eyes are practically trying to escape its skull, and it would last about 45 seconds in the wild before a moderately aggressive squirrel ended its lineage. We took the Ferrari of the animal kingdom and turned it into a clown car that breaks down if the humidity gets too high. This transformation wasn't a sudden event, and it wasn't a malicious plan. It started with a smell. Imagine an ancient human camp about 15,000 years ago. There is the scent of roasting meat, wood smoke, and the sharp, metallic tang of discarded bones. For a wolf, this was a five-star buffet that came with a catch. The two-legged predators sitting around the fire were dangerous. Most wolves were smart enough to stay in the shadows, but a few individuals had a specific genetic glitch. They weren't quite as afraid of us. These weren't the alphas or the strongest hunters. They were the scavengers, the ones who were willing to trade their dignity for a half-chewed mammoth rib. This was the first step in the ruination. By rewarding the wolves that were less fearful, we were accidentally selecting for an animal that was less vigilant, less independent, and less wolf-like. We were basically breeding for the slackers of the wolf world. You might assume that being less fearful just means being friendlier. But in the world of biology, nothing is that simple. When we started selecting for tameness, we triggered a massive chemical cascade that changed the very shape of the dog's body. This brings us to one of the most important scientific discoveries in the history of domestication, the Belayev silver fox experiment. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belayev wanted to see if he could recreate the domestication of dogs using wild foxes. He didn't breed them for floppy ears or curly tails. He bred them for one thing only: tameability. He picked the foxes that didn't try to bite his hand off and let them have babies. However, selecting for a nice personality ended up breaking the fox's physical blueprints in a way no one expected. Within just a few generations, these tame foxes started looking like dogs. Their ears went floppy, their tails started curling, and white patches appeared on their fur. Belayev discovered that when you select for low adrenaline and high tameness, you are actually messing with something called neural crest cells. These are the stem cells in an embryo that develop into both the adrenal glands and the pigment-producing cells in the skin. By turning down the animal's fight or flight response, we accidentally turned off the instructions for their wild appearance. The floppy ears we find so cute are actually a sign of a weakened physical system. We didn't give dogs floppy ears because we wanted them to look adorable. They got floppy ears because we broke the chemical system that makes an animal a sharp-eyed, high-functioning predator. While the physical changes were strange, you could argue that a curly tail is a fair price to pay for a warm bed and a bowl of kibble. But the physical ruination was nothing compared to the cognitive lobotomy we performed. We think of dogs as being smart because they can sit and stay, but researchers have found that in many ways, dogs are significantly less intelligent than their wolf ancestors. A landmark study conducted by Adam McCloskey and his colleagues in 2003 perfectly illustrates this. They gave both wolves and dogs a simple, unsolvable task. The animals were presented with a container that had a piece of meat inside, but the lid was locked. A wolf will look at that container and go to work. It will spend minutes biting it, flipping it, and trying every possible angle to get the food. It is an independent problem solver. It knows that if it wants to eat, it has to figure it out. The dog, however, behaves very differently. A dog will try the lid once or twice, and then, almost immediately, it will turn its head and look at the human in the room. It gives us that, "help me look." This is called human-directed social signaling. We find it endearing, but from a survival standpoint, it's a disaster. We have bred out the dog's ability to think for itself. We have created an animal that has a social dependency so deep that it would rather wait for a human to solve a problem than try to solve it on its own. We didn't make them smarter, we made them into permanent toddlers who never outgrow the looking for mommy phase. This sounds like the dog is just being polite, but it's actually a sign that we've fundamentally altered their brain chemistry to favor obedience over autonomy. Another researcher, Brian Hare, conducted famous studies showing that dogs are better at reading human gestures than almost any other animal, including chimpanzees. If you point at a cup with a treat under it, a dog will go to that cup. A wolf, even one raised by humans, usually won't. They don't care where you're pointing because they don't see you as an authority on where their food is. By selecting for dogs that listen to us, we were selecting for an animal that had to give up its own internal compass. The dog's brain has been shrunk by about 20% compared to a wolf's brain, specifically in the areas related to sensory processing and independent decision-making. We literally shrunk their brains so they would fit more comfortably in our living rooms. You might think that at least we improved their lives by giving them a more stable diet, but even their stomachs were ruined by our ancient ancestors. For millions of years, the ancestors of dogs were strict carnivores. Their bodies were high-performance meat-processing plants. But as humans moved from being hunters to being farmers, our dogs had to change too. A 2013 study led by Eric Axelson discovered that dogs have a massive genetic difference from wolves when it comes to digestion. Dogs have many more copies of a gene called AME2B, which allows them to digest starch. This seems like a useful adaptation, but it's really just another way we forced them to adapt to our leftovers. While we were eating bread and porridge, we were forcing our dogs to evolve into trash compactors. We took a noble hunter and turned it into an animal that can survive on corn and wheat fillers. This shift in diet is why modern dogs suffer from things like obesity, diabetes, and dental issues that their wolf ancestors never had to worry about. We didn't just change what they ate, we changed their entire metabolic identity. We ruined their status as pure carnivores and turned them into biological dependents on the agricultural revolution. This genetic tampering didn't stop at the stomach. It reached all the way into their faces. Have you ever wondered why it's so hard to say no to a dog when it gives you that specific, pathetic look? It's because we literally engineered their facial muscles to manipulate our emotions. Research published by Julianne Kaminsky in 2019 found that dogs have a specific muscle in their eyebrows called the levator anguli oculi medialis. This muscle allows them to raise their inner eyebrows, making their eyes look larger and more human-like. Surprisingly, wolves don't have this muscle at all. They don't need it. A wolf doesn't care if you think it looks sad. But across thousands of years, Ancient humans consistently chose to feed and protect the dogs that could make puppy dog eyes. We selected for the dogs that could hijack our caregiving instincts. We didn't breed them for health or strength. We bred them for their ability to trigger a cute response in our brains. This is why many modern breeds have those squished faces. We liked the way it looked, even though it caused a condition called brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome, or BOAS. We traded the dog's ability to breathe properly for our own aesthetic pleasure. We ruined their respiratory systems because we thought a flat nose was adorable. It's a bit like giving someone a permanent cold because you like the way their voice sounds when they're congested. But you could argue that despite all these physical and mental changes, the bond we have with dogs is still something pure and special. However, even that bond is the result of a biological hack that ancient humans stumbled upon. When you look into your dog's eyes, both your brain and the dog's brain release oxytocin, the love hormone that bonds mothers to their infants. A 2015 study by Takefumi Nagasawa showed that this oxytocin loop is unique to the human-dog relationship. Wolves don't do this. Even if a wolf is raised by a human, looking into that human's eyes is often seen as a threat or a challenge. We didn't just domesticate dogs. We hacked their endocrine systems to make them addicted to us. We took a social animal that was loyal to its pack and redirected that loyalty toward a completely different species. We created a biological trap where the dog's emotional well-being is entirely dependent on our approval. This is why dogs get separation anxiety. A wolf doesn't get separation anxiety when it's away from a human, it just goes about its day. A dog, however, can experience a full-blown panic attack because we've bred it to be an emotional parasite. We ruined their emotional independence so that we could have something that would never leave our side. We didn't create a partner, we created a stuffed animal that has a heartbeat and a neurochemical need for our attention. This emotional dependency is the core of the ruination. We took a creature that was a master of its environment and turned it into a creature that is a master of us. And while that might feel like a win for the dog, it has led to some truly bizarre and tragic physical consequences. Once we moved past the ancient phase and into the Victorian era of breed standards, we took the ruination to a whole new level. We started breeding for purity, which is just a fancy word for inbreeding. By trying to keep certain looks consistent, we locked in genetic diseases. Take the German Shepherd, for example. We wanted a sloping back because we thought it looked powerful and athletic. In reality, we were ruining their hips. Today, a huge percentage of German Shepherds suffer from hip dysplasia, a painful condition where their joints basically fall apart. We did this on purpose, or at least with a reckless disregard for the animal's health, all for the sake of a specific look. Or look at the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. We bred them to have such small, royal heads that their brains are sometimes too big for their skulls, causing a neurological condition called syringomyelia. Their very existence is often a state of chronic pain because we decided that a certain head shape was the standard of beauty. We aren't just ruination artists, we are biological vandals. You might think this is just a problem for fancy breeds, but the ruination of the dog's autonomy is universal. Even the most natural-looking mutt is still a shadow of the wolf it could have been. We have replaced natural selection, where the strongest and smartest survive, with human selection, where the cutest and most obedient survive. In the wild, a wolf that can't track a scent or coordinate a hunt dies. In our world, a dog that can't track a scent just gets a different flavor of canned food. We have created a safety net that has allowed the species to survive in massive numbers, but it's a net that has also caught and preserved every genetic weakness and cognitive shortcut. This brings us to a strange paradox. Dogs are technically one of the most successful species on Earth if you count success by population. There are nearly 1 billion dogs on the planet, while there are only about 300,000 gray wolves left. From a cold, evolutionary perspective, dogs won. They found a niche, us, and they exploited it perfectly. But is it really a victory if you lose yourself in the process? If a species survives only by becoming a deformed, dependent version of its former glory, is that success, or is it a kind of living extinction of the animal's true nature? Now, reach down and touch that fur again. Feel that low simmering heat radiating from their body, that intense, unblinking focus they have on your every move. It feels like love, doesn't it? That deep, unwavering gaze is exactly what we spent 15 millennia perfecting. We bred out the fear, we bred out the autonomy, and we bred in a chemical addiction to our presence. That sensation of a warm, heavy head on your knee is the physical weight of a species that can no longer stand on its own 2 feet. We took an apex predator, an animal that could look the world in the eye and never blink, and we shrunk its soul until it only had room to look at you. When you feel that damp nose against your palm, you aren't feeling a partner, you are feeling a victim of our own ancient, selfish need to never be alone. We didn't just tame the wolf, we hollowed it out and moved in. And the most chilling part of that warm sensation? They don't even know they're missing. We ruined them so completely that they actually thank us for it every time they wag their tails. What do you think? Have we done right by dogs? Or have we just created a biological servant that we've convinced ourselves is a friend? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this ruination. Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring the weird, accidental ways we've reshaped the world around us, I'd love to have you along for the next deep dive. It's a strange rabbit hole to fall down, but there's always something new to find. See you in the next one. We like to think that we civilized the wolf, but really, we just stripped it of its agency. We took away its need to think, its need to hunt, and its need to be an equal part of the natural world. We traded its wildness for usefulness. Ancient humans needed a tool, a guard, a hunter, a warm body for the cold nights, and they built that tool out of the living flesh of the wolf. They didn't have the instruction manual for genetics, so they just kept tinkering until they got something that worked. They weren't trying to be cruel, they were just trying to survive, and the wolf was a resource to be managed. But now, we are the ones who have to live with the consequences. We have created a world where we are responsible for the physical and emotional health of a billion creatures that we fundamentally broke. We spend billions of dollars on specialized diets, surgeries to fix the snouts we flattened, and medications to treat the anxiety we bred into them. We are in a constant battle to fix the ruination that our ancestors started. And the most ruined part of the whole situation is that we can't stop. We still look at the newest designer breeds, the Labradoodles, the Maltipas, the Pomskis, and we continue the same process. We are still picking the cutest and the softest, without any regard for what it's doing to the animal's internal architecture. We are still ruining dogs, one must-have breed at a time. This seems like a harsh way to look at our best friends. You might be thinking about your own dog right now, the way it wags its tail when you walk through the door or the way it seems to know exactly when you're having a bad day. That connection is real and it is powerful. But it's important to recognize that the connection exists because we pruned away everything else. We cleared out the wolf to make room for the friend. We traded the awe-inspiring majesty of a wild predator for the comfortable, predictable loyalty of a pet. We ruined a masterpiece to create a sketch that we could understand. If we want to be better owners, we have to start by acknowledging the ruination. We have to recognize that a dog isn't just a fur baby or a human in a suit. It's an animal with a deep ancestral history that we have systematically suppressed. When we treat them like people, we are actually continuing the process of ruining them. We are ignoring their need for boundaries, for work, and for the kind of independent activity that their brains are still, somewhere deep down, craving. We owe it to them to understand the biological cost of their companionship. We have to be the brains that we bred out of them. So, the next time you feel that heavy, warm head resting on your knee, don't just think about how much that dog loves you. Think about the 20,000 years of accidental engineering that put it there. Think about the wolves that had to disappear so that this companion could exist. Think about the broken eyebrows, the lobotomized brain, and the starch-digesting stomach. We have created a miracle of companionship, but it is a miracle built on the ruins of a much grander animal. We didn't just domesticate dogs. We edited them until they were a story about us, rather than a story about themselves. It's a story with a lot of love, but it's also a story with a lot of loss. We have the dog we wanted, but we lost the animal that once was. And while we wouldn't trade our best friends for anything, we have to live with the knowledge that our friendship came with a very steep price tag. We didn't just invite the wolf in from the cold, we made it so the wolf could never survive the cold again. We ruined them, and in doing so, we made them ours forever. It is the most successful, most beautiful, and most tragic act of vandalism in human history. But surely you might argue, the dog is happy. And in their own limited, human-focused way, they probably are. They don't know what they lost. They don't miss the tundra or the thrill of the hunt. They only know the warmth of your house and the sound of the treat jar opening. They are the perfect product of our desires. But that happiness is a captive happiness. It's the happiness of a creature that has been designed to be happy with whatever we give it. It's a ruination that feels like a blessing. Ultimately, the history of the dog is a mirror of the history of us. It shows our power to reshape the world, our tendency to prioritize comfort over integrity, and our incredible capacity to love things even as we break them. We didn't mean to ruin dogs, we just wanted a friend. And we got one. We got the most loyal, most loving, most attuned friend we could ever imagine. We just had to destroy the wolf to get it. It's a trade we made a long time ago, and it's a trade we make every single day when we whistle for them to come. As you sit there, perhaps with your own best friend nearby, consider the weight of that relationship. It's more than just pet ownership. It's a massive, ongoing biological experiment that has no undo button. We have changed the DNA of the world to suit our needs. We have turned the wild into the domestic, the independent into the dependent, and the wolf into the dog. We ruined them, and now they are the only things that truly understand us. It's a strange, broken kind of perfection,